Welcome to the show that delivers quality Oregon music straight to your living room. As always, I am your host, Philip Pompetti, and this is Locals Live. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Locals Live on KBVR. With me tonight is Corvallis-based rock group Macrofocus with their first song for this evening, Unpredictable.
Your handwritten notes mean more to me than you may realize. Don't you know how blessed I feel by your gesture? For simplicity's sake, I'm honing in what I want this time. As I grow into what I never thought was possible in my life. You've got me caught in the act of unpredictability. You know I'd love to see you in your element. When there's a glint in you, I want to be bathing in it. And I yearn to co-create something with you. Got me figured out, think you got me figured out. Think you got me figured out, think you got me figured out. Manliness is relative, and I have not reserved the energy to memorize the road. Zoning so deeply, yet no one acknowledges. How would it be to breathe in your breaths this time? think you got me figured out. You 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 think you've 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 got me figured out. You got me caught in the act. You've got me caught in the act. You've got me caught in the act. Oh, forgetting how to react. Forgetting how to react. Forgetting how to react. Oh, is this what you wanted? Cascades and panorama. My cup runneth over. Is this the dream you wanted? Occupied with reflections, false commitments, all let go of this albatross and exiles, illusions, veiled in flesh and blood. I alone am dull and drifting like the waves of the sea. Most of you what others feel, what nonsense I'm a fool. Oh yes, I am confused. Oh yes, I am confused. in your home. Grace and shafted, so you feel. There's truth and heart in all the world. All my fingers are too tightly.
Thank you for tuning in to Locals Live on KBVR TV. Do not go anywhere. We will be right back after this. Thank you for tuning in to Locals Live on KBVR TV. We're here tonight with Macrofocus with their next song for us for this evening.
Thanks for tuning in. This next tune is called Mixtape Alta. Hope you enjoy. it's only justified. You say the control and the settled land. From your fallacies I run to nothing. Of all the pieces seem still such a mess. Such a mess. I didn't feel safe. Forget that I'm watching every move you make. I soften my male pride, but it's so damn hard to let go. Don't burn these bridges, on the fringes of this world. Couldn't be with anyone else, even though she brings all these flavors in my life. You gotta be kidding me with all these decisions. Get your act together, buddy. Trade it out as full as long as a good deal. Fragile pathways will not sustain. Breaches cunningly await me. Terrorist is in my psyche. Worry without ceasing to let the side world reify them. Remain in this state until you come and pick me up, my angel said. Now all you want from me, there's no way to tell what's going on in your veil. I suffer in the male pride, but it's so damn hard to let go. Don't burn these bridges. Let me be on the fringes of this world. Couldn't be with anyone else, not even all this that she brings. But kindness won't match the feelings I felt. just push and pull me. But Shiva, I miss your strength. Don't you see it on my face? Shiva! Unite with me! For the love of everything we find in creation!
You're watching a set by Macrofocus on KBVR TV. Do not go anywhere. We will be right back after this. Thank you for tuning back into Locals Live on KBVR TV. I'm sitting down with the band members from the Corvallis-based rock group Macrofocus. Thank you guys for joining me tonight.
Absolutely.
Now you guys have, can you take a moment and explain to me where the name Macrofocus came from? It's definitely a different kind of band name than I've heard.
Well, when I've mentioned it to people, a lot of people say, oh, you mean you're referencing cameras? Not really, actually. I came up with it in solitude 2 years back when I actually wrote a song called Macrofocus. And then it welled up when I wanted to start a new project. And so I thought Macrofocus, it means just a lot of focus, a lot of energy, a lot of passion, kind of what we're about.
Certainly. You mentioned you were in solitude. Can you talk a little bit about what that means exactly?
Well, I was in Arizona. I was in an empty apartment in Arizona. I had an amp. I had a guitar. So I just started writing songs. In fact, that song that we just played it's called Vata, and it's kind of about my experience in that state.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Now, Chris and Kevin, how long have you guys been performing together as Macrofocus? Can you speak to me a little bit about your past as a group?
How long have we been playing as Macro? About 2 days. It's literally been, Chris and I have a extensive background playing in different musics, primarily jazz and experimental kinds of musics. Chris is a very accomplished cellist and multi-instrumentalist, and so this is his sort of, edgy rock outlet, I guess. And I've just played with him for a couple of shows, and so it's been rather short-lived and frightening at the same time, because this is really largely on the edge of development. I mean, things aren't really established. We're establishing it as you see it on stage right now, and that's kind of frightening. So we've played for a couple of years, or probably a year or so. Mm-hmm. Just really only the last month or so in this situation.
Mm-hmm. Now, what does your varied backgrounds, your varied musical tastes and musical backgrounds, what does that history lend to your current to writing songs for Macrofocus?
Well, the first thing that popped in my mind was that Kevin and I have been going to metal shows up in Portland recently. I just get to kind of tag along in the minivan, which feels good. And it speaks to the variety of styles that he and I have both been exposed to growing up. I mean, I was classically trained at starting age 4 or 5 on violin, and I've since foregone the violin, but it provided a nice foundation for all this, as well as piano and cello.
Why put down the violin in favor of the guitar?
Well, in favor of cello and guitar.
Cello,
actually.
my apologies.
No problem. But actually, guitar is kind of similar to violin in terms of frequency range. But just violin wasn't for me. Yeah.
Now, do you think there are any limitations you've experienced? I know you've only been a 2-piece band for a relatively short amount of time, but can you imagine, or can you speak to me a little bit about any limitations you might encounter only having the 2-man act as opposed to some of these larger, more? I know you've mentioned you were in jazz bands. I mean, oftentimes jazz bands are multi-instrumental ensembles. What are some of the limitations you've encountered being a 2-man act as opposed to a larger band, if any?
Can I speak to this, man? I would say none. none. It's the only limitation I'd see was like another guitarist saying, "Hey, can you try this?" and being able to layer on some melodies over what I do. But I've got this loop pedal that takes care of that. I've got a microchip instead of another guitarist. That might sound weird, but it works.
I wouldn't necessarily say it would sound weird, but definitely, you know, there's always that desire as a musician to have that human connection, to have that human. One of your song's names, for example, has to do with humans and air. And I would think that kind of the musical process has a lot wrapped up in human interaction. So is it more important that you have a pedal as opposed to another guitarist, and why is that?
I want to touch on what you just mentioned because that was really poignant. That's kind of what we're about, is kind of exploring life as it is, like not taking things for granted, but kind of going like, oh, maybe some people in the audience have some similar experiences to what I sing about, maybe not. But I think we can all relate from coming from like a place of vulnerability and opening up and sharing instead of going about our lives just trying to please other people.
Well, that's epitomized in a duo situation where there's an intimacy there that you have to tap into. A third person would, certainly lend creative contributions, but there's something really intimate about being on stage with somebody one-on-one, and especially this genre of music, which is not heavily, his music, which is not heavily rehearsed, and so there's a real trust that goes on and a ebb and flow. And the third person is sort of the third wheel, maybe kind of, obtrusive a little bit. I don't know, but I know that with the minimal amount of people in this group, it lends itself to a creative confluence and intimacy. I think that would be, limited perhaps with the additional players.
Now, just to bring it back, I mean, which I just find it interesting that you've been a band, as you said, for 2 days. How did this pairing happen? What were the circumstances in which you two got together as musicians and started to produce music?
Well, I was called, when the Beanery downtown used to do live music, I was called by a buddy of mine to this show. Hey, we need a cellist, or what you do could really fit in with this. Kevin was there playing drums. Connection like that doesn't happen that easily with a lot of people, but with Kevin it was just like boom. And since then we've been good friends.
Definitely. I mean, do you have side projects, other projects you're working on separately or together that you can speak about?
I founded a group called the Van Myers, and we've played throughout town, originally starting as a duo as well, a guitar and drums duo, improvising in jazz, and that has expanded itself to include all kinds of collaborations. I'm always amazed at the burgeoning creative music scene in such a small demographic as Corvallis. Everywhere you go, there's somebody who's in their basement doing something different than maybe the usual pop rock or singer-songwriter. There's somebody experimenting with bizarre loops and drones and noise. And yeah, it's amazing. And so I've really tapped into that scene, and that's been a real passion of mine, is collaborating with my group, the Van Myers, and then finding other people, classically trained, the three-chord punk rocker, the guy playing kazoo, whatever. It's all we're all welcome to create this music. So that's been the primary side project, and I have several albums out, and I'm producing and collaborating and recording and documenting these connections, and so that's largely where. And so you might see Chris and I playing in some strange, bizarre duo on the street corner or something. I don't know.
Public libraries.
Yeah, who knows? I don't know. In the toilet, whatever.
Stalls,
whatever works. You got great ambience in the toilet stalls. I know.
Sure. Now this particular style of music that you're playing, it's very open-ended and very fluid, and the end of the songs sometimes isn't so easy rather to pinpoint. What exactly goes into the songwriting process that allows you to create this kind of experimental pop as you have defined it?
Frustration, I'd say.
Frustration.
Frustration with turning on the radio. Come on, I want more depth. When I turn on the radio and we hear something with more depth. That's 1% of it. Probably the 99% would be just like my own growth as a human in this earth, and playing, you know, and like relating my own growth with my musical growth and just exploring the emotions that come up in my life through music. Music is extremely healing. If I don't play music for a day, I go crazy. I need it. It's food. So where the songwriting ties in is it gives me the chance to pinpoint certain emotions that I want to be able to recreate every show. Like, oh, I think that this would really help us connect with people.
Perfect.
And so, again, they are open-ended, but they do represent a lot of plugging and chugging at home and rehearsing lines and getting up at 3 a.m. and going, oh, this would work. This is a good lyric. Let's do it.
Excellent.
Then scrapping it, ripping it up, throwing it out.
Right. Well, Chris, Kevin, thank you very much for sitting down and speaking with me. It was an absolute pleasure. I'm very excited to hear the rest of what you guys have for us this evening. Chris and Kevin from Macrofocus, Corvallis bass rock band. Do not go anywhere. We will be right back after this. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Locals Live on KBVR TV. We're going to let Macrofocus play us out tonight with their last song for this evening, Saitama.
This one's about my journeys in Japan.
On the tatami, a place is set. Postmodern tradition bled. We won't fulfill picking up scraps. Now I this life prefecture, sacred space inside time. A delicate aroma tries. The world is in the glance you pass across the earth. Right, your essence dries. Your softest features glow. These languid hours, the councils of whom will save There's more to you than on the surface, so I'll be back in just a heartbeat. Got me wondering what my next move will be. Know that you're here for your whole life, but I feel like some suburban misplaced in the Tokyo streets. You got me wondering what am I for? Does anyone else feel this way? I'm not fool like you just feel. Yeah, get me out of here, get me out of here, get me out of here.